morning, good afternoon, and good evening, current and future AGA members. I'm Chris Garlock, managing editor of the AGA e-journal, joined once again by Michael Redmond, 9 Dan professional. Today, Michael is going to review the 22nd game in the AlphaGo versus AlphaGo self-play series. And as always, before we get started, just want to thank all our AGA members. And if you'd like to support this content as well, please consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. I got to tell you, Michael, I know folks out there really look forward to these, but my week is just not complete until we take a look at these AlphaGo versus AlphaGo games. They're really, they used to be really mysterious, and I'm sort of fooling myself that I think I understand them now.
You're getting acclimatized.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Well, it's all thanks to you. So thanks once again. And I know. Just you put we've been working on the AG, the AlphaGo book, and folks, Michael works really hard on these. Mm-hmm. So, all right, enough embarrassing, Michael. Let's get to the game. What do we what's the storyline here?
Well, this is going to be a big attacking game for Black. So first half of the game, just about, mm-hmm. We're going to see Black launching some attacks and White handling it. And so that's interesting in itself. And then when it looks like the game is going to settle down, we're going to see this big upheaval starting. And it's going to take them about 120 moves to resolve it. And so it's going to be a close situation that in a very close game. Like it's a very close. It looks like it's going to be a close game. And then they start this big co-fight, and after 120 moves, it's still pretty close. So it's really exciting at that point. Yeah.
All right. That's we like.
Just really going for each other's throats, you might say.
All right.
So Black starts with this. Again, what I really like about this series is that AlphaGo can play 3-4 points and can play various openings. So actually, this is an opening that we've been seeing before, where where both players have 3-4 points, and Black plays this approach. White also plays a low approach. And we know that AlphaGo likes to play this knight's move against the low approach. Also, this is just about the only joseki that White plays against the high approach also. So mm-hmm. these are two pretty typical AlphaGo joseki sequences. And now, like, Black plays the pincer. This is, again, it seems the biggest move. Of course, anyone who knows a joseki knows that Black is supposed to play here after playing that position in the lower left corner. This is the joseki move, but it would allow White to play the extension on the right side. This is pretty efficient position overall for White. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that Black plays this pincer on the right side, and with this extra stone pointing towards the lower half of the board. Any fight that's going to happen on the lower side is going to be okay for Black. It's not as if Black's going to be pushed around here. But of course, White jumps in anyway. So we have this position actually in a previous game. Let's see if I think it was game 11.
Yeah. I was supposed to remind you about that.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. It was game 11, I believe. So we've already done a video about exactly the same position, mm-hmm. in which case Black jumped out at A. So this is going to be similar. Another move you might think of is capping here, mm-hmm. more direct attack. Actually, it's pretty unusual to see AlphaGo do this direct attack. I would expect White to just start to make eyes here. And we can see that Black also has to worry about getting cut off at this point. Let's mark a point for White to cut Black off here. Mm-hmm. So that's the point of White's jumping to the side here. White is sort of preparing to make that attachment on the 5th line. And Black will probably back up here, and White can make a life on the side. So this would be not a very effective way for Black to attack White. So that explains.
We don't see AlphaGo do that cap hardly ever, I don't think.
It doesn't like to do that, no. It prefers to make a more indirect move that is getting some profit. For instance, right. If Black had played at A at this point, Black would be reducing white's potential on the left and on the left half of the board. So black is almost always trying to get some potential in some other part of the board while threatening to attack. It's much more efficient that way.
Sure.
And so this is the game move. And black A was the move that was played in game 11. And it's going to end up becoming a fairly similar position, because this is what white should not do. This is an example of how black can sort of set up a double attack if white simply plays that way. So white plays this move. And so this is actually the point where white played in game 11 also. So we're going to end up with a different order of moves, but a fairly similar shape.
We talked about that in game 11 because it seems tight, right? Just
it's
the one.
Really
space.
Tight. It's you would like to be able to make a 2-space extension on the third line, but white doesn't have the room to do that.
I just asked because my instinct was to do the 2-space because it looks like you have room to do it, but you're saying it actually doesn't work.
Oh, you mean this one? Well, like it's just scrunched up against that black stone.
Right.
Actually, black might answer it on top. But it's not really, it's not going anywhere.
You wind up having to back up anyway.
Yeah. And so it's actually probably better for white to do the 1-space and to have this slide underneath this point here to look at.
Follow up, yeah.
And of course, if black, let's just add another variation. So if black plays here, then white can jump here. And this is a position where white's going to get out into the center with very nice shape. So that's it's sort of making miai of those 2 points, making them interchangeable.
Right.
And so black jumps out. So as I said, this is like if we move this stone over to this point, it's the same position, more or less, as what we had in game 11. It's just a slightly different position. And so white jumps into the 3-3 point. Typical AlphaGo stuff. Like a safe move would be to slide at A to make a living shape on the lower side, and black would probably play something like B. But AlphaGo doesn't really go for safe moves. And so we get this. It's an unusual variation of the joseki with black extending here, but this is it's an even result. It's one of the moves that AlphaGo plays, especially this version of AlphaGo plays it every so often. But human players tend to want to play the knight's move at this point. Human players like to, let's just put it on the board, like to play this move, black. And so this is the AlphaGo joseki that's really popular. But AlphaGo itself, especially in the master version, sometimes just extends here. And so again, if black caps here, I would expect white to jump out. And probably at some point, white's going to dive in here. So that's my explanation for why black plays this move. You might recall from game 21, black played a very similar move.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
So
do you like this move?
It's putting a center into the moyo. It makes it much more difficult for white to invade.
Right.
And so I like that move, yes. And so white, a very tight move here on the upper side. You could have played that move at A, and it would have worked. But playing the tight move, the kosumi here, it takes away any forcing moves that black could have had. So in a way, white's sort of playing a move that black cannot get any momentum against. Black cannot have any forcing moves against it. And it means that white is planning to invade the right side.
Right.
It works very well if white invades the right side later in the game. And we're going to see that happen. And so it makes sense. And so now black peeps. This is a very strong move. If white, let's see, I didn't make a variation for that. Let's see, white plays once here. White did push, so yeah. So, and then black plays here. So this is really interesting. Black peeping, the peep here, the one stone here, is sort of in a vital point to take away white's eye space. So it's trying to give white heavy shape. Covering here actually would not be so good because white would just capture that stone. And this would give white a living shape and freedom to, well, for instance, I played this jump on the upper side. In actuality, I think AlphaGo might be planning on diving in a bit more deeply.
Mm.
But whatever white does, the fact that white's alive on the lower side now is making it easy for white. And so by playing here, for instance, in the game white played here, and then black pulls out, we can see that black is trying to set up more of an attack against white, just keeping the stone alive. And surrounding the right side, maybe a bit more conservatively with this knight's move, but it's still, this is sort of the line that black would like to aim at with surrounding the right side. Because the center area is not, with this white stone, let's just mark this white stone too. With this white stone in the way, black doesn't have very much potential to spread out into the center with that white stone in the way. And so black's goal at this point should be to surround the right side. So this marked black stone is working well with that idea.
Doesn't black have to worry a little bit about getting too over-concentrated on the right?
Well, it looks pretty balanced at this point. Black is trying to do it while attacking white, so it all depends on how the attack turns out.
Okay.
So this is where white gets fancy. One attachment, and you sort of expect black to pull back at A or bump against at B.
Sure.
So I think I did variations for both of those. If black pulls back, then white's just going to extend here. And you can see the point is that white's getting rid of the potential cut here, for instance, this kind of stuff. That stone is going to be in the way. So in this kind of thing, white can answer on the left. And disregarding what might happen to black in the center of the board, it's pretty clear that this stone is going to be in the way of that. So it's a profitable exchange if black answers here. And something like this could happen. It looks like it's a playable fight for white. Otherwise, if black bumps against white, now white's going to be able to push through here. So the cut at B is just not going to work now. So this is super effective for white. So so these two moves that you sort of expect that was the game move. The two moves that you sort of expect black to do, both of them are not getting a very good result. And so black plays this move, which looks sort of weird, but it's actually probably the best move. And so white plays here and bumps against once. And you can see white is sort of starting to make territory on the lower side. And then I'm sort of surprised because white now white's going to give up the center here. So this is what happened in the game. And what seems the natural move is for white to play here now after playing that exchange. And this actually looks like it could work. Like, for instance, if black plays here, then connecting here is going to make some trouble. Black has to cut it at D. And if we assume A is sort of forcing on both sides. I did this. Let's just add some stones to this shape here to make it more clear. Like if black plays here, and white plays here, and then here, just to give something that's pretty ideal for white. If we have this kind of thing happening, and then this kind of thing. Now, so this point here, the connection here, was actually, in this case, it was a double threat because white was threatening black on the right side, but also when this happens, and this happens, this is bad for black on the lower side also. So this is just bad for black on both sides.
That black shape on the right is so ugly.
Yeah. So so it looks like this move could work for white. So I was surprised that white didn't do that. In actuality, I don't really know how black would handle it. Black would probably have to play something a bit more conservative at some point. Probably, maybe with these two moves here, black could, for instance, play something like this to get a different result. But white could have done that. But in the actual game, white just settles the group, taking territory on the side. This is another way to do it, and it's not turning into a bad result for white. It's a pretty even result. So white's alive on the side, and white has sente. Getting the tempo here is one of the points. Of course, and so white actually switches to the right side with a very typical AlphaGo move. Like peeping here is usually, originally it was a kind of shape that would be considered vulgar, but it's a move that AlphaGo really likes to play.
I had a question about that because, it's the kind of move that I would see, but I would be really worried that I would be, admonished.
Right. Yeah. Well, usually this is a position where white would be looking at an attachment to invade,
Yeah,
like an attachment, for instance, right next to it here.
sure.
And so it's not a move that has been played historically very much
Okay.
in human games when dealing with a moyo like this.
Hmm.
So it looks like it could be a heavy move, a vulgar move,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it works pretty well when AlphaGo plays it. Um,
So it's not vulgar when AlphaGo plays it.
it finds ways to make it work, and there is some space there on the right side. Another point is that although I did say that white lived on the lower side to get tempo, I would be tempted to continue here with this move. And this would lead to a completely different game in which white is attempting to attack black
On the left, yeah.
on the left side. So this kind of thing could happen. This is how I would want to continue the game with white, just making a lot of trouble. This is one example of sort of how it could work. White would be squeezing in the center. If we continued the game like this, for instance, then white would be able to attack with something like this. And we see some potential for white to squeeze black fairly strongly on the left side of the board.
Right.
And then white could invade the right side. But of course, if this is just, I'm choosing a variation that's working fairly well for white. And if I tried to, it's so much easier for me. Like if I tried to be fair and made all sorts of variations, it would just be so confusing.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, let's not do that. Well, it's confusing enough anyway. But I would be tempted to continue the attack. I guess it's partly because I'm kind of an attacking player anyway. But I would want to do that.
But I'm assuming, and I'm with you on keeping it, as unconfusing as possible, that black probably has an opportunity to break off at some point.
Well, yeah, theoretically, there's ideas that black could maybe just dodge that, and there's potential that white would be playing too many moves in this area, which is not directly associated with black's moyo on the right side.
Right.
So there's that danger, and so just jumping in is a valid idea, but I just did want to make the point that I would be tempted to attack first.
Okay, as many of us would be as well.
Yeah, and so white just settles down there. Looks like white's trying to make room to live. Yeah.
I'm just gonna. So I understand. Actually, the peep I kind of get, but why?
Why there? Yeah. Well, like it is a position where like most players would be trying to play something a little bit more getting out, like something like this.
Something light, yeah.
Yeah, something like this or something like this. The point is that AlphaGo seems to think that it has potential to make room to live on the side. And the idea probably is that if black, if black attacks from above, for instance, something like this would be working for white. White plays like this. And this is actually a turning point here where if black connects, then it's going to be dangerous for black too, because if black connects here, then there's this weak black group on the side too. It's going to be very, very complicated, but it looks like white has potential too. But if black plays the shape move here, then white's going to get off, escape on the side. So there is some potential here for white to make some living shape on the side. The game move was actually here. I should probably add another variation for black playing something like this. I think this is the main variation that would give you an idea of what this move here, this covering move here is trying to accomplish, is that if black plays an extension on the side, black can take away white's eyes. But the idea is that white's probably maybe not that way. Let's take that move back and say white plays something like this. Just the idea that white can use that as a kind of a momentum to get out into the center and probably continue with something like this. Sort of inducing black to play a move on the side of the board so that white can play against that and then use that to run out into the center. So I think that's the idea here. So black plays from above, a very solid move. very tight move, you might say.
Yeah.
I would sort of expect this one. This is the variation that I would be thinking of if I was playing with black. But then black covers it anyway. And so white pushes through. And again, this would be a more consistent move. It would be a more safe-looking move. And white will be able to live. Like this is already alive with actually A and B are the eye.
Right.
So if black takes it A, then white's going to peep at B and make an eye. Let's just make that variation.
Okay.
So if black plays here, white can play here. If black peeps, then white's all connected. So if black connects, then white can make a life. So this is relatively easy for white to live here. And if black doesn't do that, like if black plays something like this, then white does have enough room to live. This is enough room for white to live on the side. So that's how I would have played with white. I would have been satisfied with a life here with A and B as Mia, and I've marked C also as a weak point in black's wall.
Right.
But white didn't do that. This is where it gets really exciting because after playing this exchange, now it's going to be difficult for white to live on the side. And so black has actually, with this move, black has completely taken away white's potential eyes.
This is the game? This is the game?
The game, yes.
But white looks so heavy.
White's not alive yet.
Right, well, there's that.
White has to run out in the center. And yeah, so this is really interesting. So this is a point where black could have played here. And if we assume white plays here, black plays here, it's just one eye for white.
Yeah.
Really simple, right?
Yeah.
Playing here actually is going to give white an opportunity to at some point play here. And if black answers it, then white can play here to make a ko. So actually, black is giving up the opportunity of killing white outright. And instead, black is allowing white to get a ko here.
Okay.
And there are pros and cons to this this choice that black. One of the good points for black is that black is getting a sonnet B, which sets up a hane at C. So black's getting a lot of profit. And this is a one-sided ko at A, so it's going to be really painful for white when it happens. So black is saying that's okay. It doesn't care if white makes a ko. So what's wrong with killing it with this? Actually, white's not going to play this immediately. White's going to play this when white actually needs the one eye. In some cases, when the whole white group dies. And we're going to see variations where white could have sacked the whole group. So just assume that it's reasonable to assume that in some cases the whole white group can die. Then stuff like this can happen. In which case, if black answers on this side, white's going to live.
Wow.
And so black's going to push through. And white's going to get a peep here. And this kind of stuff, if we assume the whole white group dies, then this is going to be really annoying for black, losing something like 10 points on the side. Because white's not going to just die unconditionally. It's going to be a trade with, for instance, this black group in the lower left. Let's mark the black group, which I think in some cases could be traded off for the whole white group on the right side. So if we assume that kind of potential variation, then black, this choice of killing white outright without the potential ko, it has the drawback that in some cases white's going to get to reduce black's territory with this sequence here.
Right.
Okay. And so it's really it's hard to judge. This assumption behind black's choice of playing this move is that in some cases white's going to sack the whole group, and it's going to be really hard for me to find examples for that because it involves the whole board, and usually it's not going to happen. But I think that's part of the whole idea here is that white might be sacking the whole group in some cases. And in that case, this is going to be better for black as far as territory is concerned.
Wow.
So white did play that exchange. And white pushes out. So white has a potential ko there. It's a potential ko that gives white. And again, just to go into that, white plays here. I have black play here. Even if black plays the Atari here, let's play an Atari. Again, this would be a ko if white plays here. So it's going to be ko in either case. So white's not 100% dead. And of course, the advantage that white gets out of this is that white has that ko waiting here. So it makes it easier for white to deal with the group. It's more, the attacking is more difficult. So the whole point here is that black is actually not going to go for the kill. And so, and I think that this move, the choice that black made here of giving white a potential ko there, sort of demonstrates the point that black is not really going for a kill here. Well, black's main aim is to get a strong position in the center and connect up to this group. We're going to see black connecting up to this group and making it a strong group. So that's what black is going to be accomplishing in this fight here. Mm. So it's a really very sort of a passive attack. It's not a very strong attack that black is doing here.
Well, I was just going to ask if it seems like rather than passive, maybe it's a patient attack.
A very patient attack. Yeah, that might be a nicer way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. And so white squeezes here. This is a nice squeeze that white can use to make some aji, which is going to come into play later in the game. And then, and you can see already, white is not connected. There's a potential cutting move here. Mm-hmm. That at this point, black does not really have time to do it. So black is going to be looking at that later. But when black does it, white will be able to use that potential ko. So at this point, black is just connecting up to the marked group, that marked stone there, saving the group on the lower left, while white connects up in the center. And so it's a very straightforward sequence here.
Man, everybody's being so patient.
Yeah, and with this move, for the time being, white has gotten rid of A.
Right.
And white's starting to look at stuff that might happen on the right side. But you can see that black has got the right side territory for the time being, and white has been playing dame points, useless points in the center of the board. Mm-hmm. And so this attack has not been a complete disaster for black. It's been a success to a certain extent. And so we're back to the opening, in a way. We're playing big moves. So black starts playing here. It looks like white suddenly remembered to play this exchange, which was sort of necessary for white to play this exchange.
I was just because the wedge otherwise is a problem, right?
So yeah, the wedge is a bit of a problem. There's the point that this point here is actually sort of half sente. Let's go into that. So let's say white played here. When black does play a move here, which is highly unlikely now, but let's just ignore what's happening in the
Oh, I see.
That changes
that changes things. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So this is something that there is a small possibility here that black would do that. But with the potential ko on the right side and a really bad shape for black in the center of the board, which could cause trouble. It's not very likely, but that is one of the things that this exchange here that white played is handling, that potential pushing move. So actually white can in some cases be answering that on this side, and it's still going to be difficult for black to take full advantage of that. Mm. And so there's a lot of nuances there, but for the time being, black's not going to try that. And it looks like we're heading into an endgame.
It sure does.
Yep.
Very peaceful.
Very peaceful, just for the time being. And again, this is a very smart move where the joseki would suggest white captures a stone a day. In this board position, the move at A is not very important. It's just a small area.
Right.
There's the centers, and making a position in the corner is more important. So black surrounds the left side, and white attacks immediately. So white's threatening to cut black off at A.
Yeah.
And black defends by playing the forcing move here.
Right.
Black is threatening to push through and cut.
Yeah.
And white answers it here. So it's a very sharp sequence here where white is getting the most out of the potential here. And black has connected all of its stones. In the meanwhile, white has reduced the left side territory slightly. So that's what white accomplished with that.
All very peaceful, and it's all good, right?
So white plays a hane here. And we can see that things are starting to heat up a little bit. This is a big hane, and white is threatening the connection here, which is, it's not clear what's going to happen with that. And the fact that black completely sort of ignores that threat is what makes the game so exciting in the latter half. So the peep here is a very sharp move. If white answers here, then black will be able to push through and cut at this point. And we can see white has a lot of cuts to deal with.
Very nice.
If white answers on this side, black can cut white off. And so the whole white center group is not connected now. So that could be trouble. Again, it's going to be that code that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So when black plays here, threatening to cut off the whole white group, it's very dangerous. Again, white plays away. But this in itself is, again, it's a very big threat. Black has to answer that. So black answers here. And then white returns to B. So A and B was, it's really interesting how AlphaGo likes to interchange a forcing move, always. It's just something about AlphaGo that it likes to do that. If we just look at black A and white B, it is a good exchange for black, locally.
Because
white black does have that connection at C later on. So it's a territory.
But not right away, though.
It's not important enough to play yet, but it is a good exchange to get. And the point is that black played it the moment white played this move. It gave extra importance to these two stones. So it made that peep at A very effective. It made it a move that white had to answer directly.
Right.
And so black jumps into the corner. And so, dancing around again. So black can live in the corner here. So this is where I tried to figure out what might happen in a normal endgame.
Right, right. Because I was just going to ask my balance of territory question at this point.
You have very good timing, because this is where I'm going to talk about it.
Good.
That's according to plan.
All right.
It's a good point to be looking at the territory. So if white plays, I would have been expecting white to play somewhere in the vicinity of A.
Sure.
So the upper side is going to be white's territory. It's about 20 points, a bit more than 20 points probably.
Right.
And white has something like 15 points in the lower left corner,
right,
and some points in the lower side. So it's white has something in the vicinity of 40 points.
Right.
And if we assume that the right side is going to become black's territory, that's more than 20 points. It's a good 20, 25 points. A few points, and then there's this whole thing in the center, which is not very clear. Like obviously there's going to be some black territory associated with all of that. But and black has a few points in the upper left corner.
It's a little short,
the left side, the left side in itself is there's a weakness here, where white can jump in, and if white plays at that mark point, it's going to be connected up. So it's already connected.
I was just trying to count that area, and
they're scrolling in here. So we're not really counting any black territory on the side. I think that black has potential to build some territory in the center of the board with all those loose white stones hanging around.
Right. So what do you give it?
Black is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 40 points. And we can't forget the territory in the corner. It looks like it's going to be pretty close.
Okay.
But that said, A is probably the move that I would be choosing with white, unless I found something a bit more effective. For instance, with escaping here is a move that I would be looking at. It looks interesting. I'm not sure it would be all that effective, but something like this, looking at a potential squeeze. I would be focusing on the upper side, because that's where white has a weak group. The upper left white group is weak now.
Yeah, but I can see you're fooling me, because I'm sure that white does not play anywhere near there.
Well, you probably didn't even see the move, because I just showed it to you. Did you see that? It's on the right side of the board. White plays on the side of the board.
No way. Are you kidding?
It's a big surprise. And now this is threatening. Obviously, it's threatening the connection underneath at B.
Yeah.
And there's some potential of a semi between the two marked groups, the white group and the black group on the right there. And of course, there's a co at A that could be troublesome.
Of course, there's a co at A. How could I miss that?
And so it's a troublesome move, but it's not really clear that it's going to be sente in this position when there's this weak group that white has in the upper left, which that's a group that white cannot afford to give up, to lose. Mm-hmm. So there's this group in the upper left that is not alive yet. And that's why I was saying that a move somewhere around A is probably a move here is probably a very important point.
Right.
Because if black gets to attack first, then white's going to have to scramble to make two eyes.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a really important area, the upper side there. And so at this point, I sort of question whether this is going to be forcing. It wasn't forcing.
Or maybe
Uh,
AlphaGo just sort of forgot about that. Yeah,
well, if white plays here, it's going to be a very close game.
right.
And it's going to take, as I said at the beginning of this video, it's going to take about 120 moves to resolve this whole thing. And it's going to be a big trade, and it's going to be a close game anyway. So looking at the result of this whole fight there, I'm saying it's maybe equal in value to the move that I would want to be playing.
Wait. So that being the case, this seems like a really complicated way. I mean, I'm excited as a viewer, and for all our folks watching, I'm very happy for this. But
well, to be completely honest, I'm not capable of judging who's going to win this endgame.
I see.
But maybe AlphaGo had an idea that it wasn't good enough for white. That would be a tentative explanation that I would give. Right. But I'm not going to tell you that black's going to win by a half point or anything like that.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, maybe its judgment gave black a good winning possibility in this variation.
Well, this other move is just more fun anyway, so it's just based on that.
It sort of indicates that maybe white thinks it's behind, because it does make a lot of uncertainties. It gives a lot of uncertainties to what's going to happen in this game. A very complicated co-fight, exciting.
Good.
So black attacks, and so black is preventing white from making that 20-point territory. Of course, white will still get some territory in the upper right corner, but white is going to be losing a lot of potential territory there. And it's all going to be coming with sente, with tempo for black, because white has to deal with this weak group. Like most players would be really uncomfortable with white.
I am completely. I mean, yes.
Yes.
Especially after. I mean, I would be so
upset that you lost that opportunity to surround the upper side.
I would have lost it. Yeah. I would have played your move without thinking about it. It's just.
So white jumps here. This is a kind of a tricky move, but white does have the target A, which makes it a connected shape. And also white's looking at potential squeeze with B. So there's some trouble for black too. And black backs off. A very good Aussie move. White captures the one stone. Mm-hmm. And again, black is not going for the kill, but black has accomplished its objective because black has reduced the upper side territory. And just a fine point here is, there's actually a potential forcing move for white.
At A?
Well, at A also, but for instance, at this point also is in some cases it's going to be forcing because
right.
A very hypothetical variation here. When black does stuff like this, there is an issue with the damezimari in the corner. So there is a potential forcing move there that makes a slight difference in what could happen here. And so that could come into the equation. So in general, in the general area, black's not really trying to get a decisive attack here, but is reducing the whole side. And white adds a stone here. So now white's alive. So white has captured the A and B stones to make two eyes. And so white has about 5 points there, but and then maybe less than 10 points in the upper right corner. But black's going to get some territory in the general area too. So I would say that black has reduced the whole area by about 10 points with sente, and also getting good Aji in the area. So this was valuable for black. Mm-hmm. And then black plays here. So this is another strong attack. Again, we have to remember that after playing this move, black will have the cut here. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So black is looking at the cut here. And for the time being, that marked black group that I've marked, it's for the time being, it's connected to the center. But that's going to change. For the time being, it's connected. Like if white plays here, black can jump here, and it's connected.
Right.
So for the cutting here, for instance, would be a simpler move. This would avoid the problem with the ko in the corner.
Right.
White would just play two Ataris here, and actually the black group there is in trouble. Like if black just goes for a semi with this move, then black's gonna lose. Like for instance, this variation. We get to this position where black has to throw in a ko. Black doesn't want to play this ko. It's going to be a very dangerous ko for black, losing the whole corner if black loses a ko. So in effect, black has already lost that group there.
Wow.
So the one way that black can save it is by playing this exchange first, which is a really lousy exchange. It's an exchange that black would rather not play because black's losing a lot of points. And that white group we were saying it was going to be cut off. It's not going to be cut off now because it's alive. And this is a kind of a joseki position here. Again, it sort of depends on that potential ko. But the point is that white has gotten a big point at B. That's really important. Mm-hmm. And it makes a life for the white group. And also white gets the tempo to play at C. And black's territory is being reduced a lot because this position on the right side is a joseki now. So that's not, it's the simplest move, but it's not going to be good enough for black.
Right, right. Okay.
So instead, black just plays here. So black's threatening the whole white group by threatening the cut in the center. And white curls once. We can see that ko is sort of preparing to start. And before playing the ko, white plays once here. So for the time being, white has gotten a connected shape, and white is threatening to cut black off with A or at B. So it's trouble on all sides. Like there's this potential ko in the corner, and white is threatening to connect under the B and threatening to cut black off at A. And so this is a very sharp move with which black has solved two of those problems, basically. White captures the stone and black plays here. Now, if white just plays here, white did play there, yeah. So the point is that theoretically, this would be good for black. This would be black getting the side territory. Black is alive in the center, still has potential capture of the 3 marked stones. And white's group on the right side is not connected yet. So white would have to go back and protect that group. Mm-hmm. And that means black would be able to continue with the endgame on the left side or the upper side. And actually, black has not really lost very much in this game. Like if white plays this move to save the center, the right side, even if black plays the local move here, black's territory is not being reduced very much.
Yeah, this
black actually might play bigger moves first, but
right.
So it's an example of, and so white takes, and now again, black's going to continue with this. Let's see. Now, if this kind of thing happens, you can see that what this move accomplished. Just go back to black's move here. This move here, black is sort of making that squeeze with this move. Mm-hmm. Obviously, black has stopped white from playing the Watari, the connection underneath here, mm-hmm. This one. Right. But also in the process here, you can see the ko there's potential for that ko to disappear. Like if we said that the problem is that this is not forcing at this point. At this point, it's different from this variation where black has actually captured a lot. If black plays this move now, white will probably just back off, and it's a very different story.
Wow.
It's a lot more for white in the center here. White's gaining a lot more territory, so that would not be good enough for black. But if we assume this is forcing, then we can see the whole ko situation is disappearing. And just to show you what happens in the semi-I, just this simple semi-I thing. In this case, black's going to win by a move. So it's
I see why.
Weird,
yeah.
Isn't it?
Right, it's very
a very similar position. Black was losing by a move.
Yeah.
But this squeeze actually reduced white's liberties significantly.
Wow.
So black's winning in this case. And that little extra liberty there, where white had to play down once, mm-hmm, and that mm-hmm. made the difference. So black cannot play that because white's going to play away to the center. So black cuts first, and white cuts. And so again, I put the variation in here. This is the same as what I was just doing. It's
right.
worth going through again. White will lose the semi by one move.
Yep, yep.
So white didn't do that, but white started the ko. So now we're finally into a ko position in which black is, let's just play around with marks here. Black is liable to lose this group and this group. Ooh. But black stones in the center are alive. But also white has to remember that this cut here is eventually going to be a problem. So if black can save, even if black loses the corner group, if black can save this mark group, then eventually black will have that cut in the center.
Right. That's a big if.
Because black still does have this kind of thing happening.
Right.
It can come as a forcing move in some of the cases. So we're going to see that kind of, all these weak groups that are sort of intertwined. Connecting is another variation. If black connects, it's a different semi-I. In this case, it's going to be a semi-I with the white group against the black group in the corner. And black doesn't have enough liberties in this case. We can see white's winning by one move.
Oh, man.
White has 3 liberties. It's going to be Atari on black next.
Yep.
And so in this case, the black group stones don't matter. And to be completely honest, even if black gets the cut here, when these 3 white stones are not important to white anymore, white actually has a potential I there. So white can play here and make an I here, because playing an Atari on those 3 stones, in this case, it was not forcing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the equation there.
Man.
For the time being, white's okay with that group, but that's going to change, of course. So they're forced into black doesn't have time to connect here. They're forced into the ko here. But it's not a direct ko. Like, it's a ko, but white has to win this ko as well as the ko. White has to win another ko in the corner.
Right,
so it's a 2-step ko. And so white plays this ko threat here. And now white takes the ko. So this is the point where white had the option of connecting at A first. Let's just do a variation for that. White had the option of playing here first. It's sort of hard to say which way black's going to do it. Usually, I think you would expect black just to capture the one stone. So white could have done that, but ideally, white would like to play that as a ko thread. So white takes the ko first. So it's very normal for white to want to do that. But also the fact that this is a niran ko, it's a 2-step ko. It gives black the opportunity to play an extra move here on the left and gain a lot of territory and erase a couple of ko threats for white. And so now white's 1 step closer to winning the ko. But black has played a huge move on the left side of the board in the process. So this is the kind of thing that you see a lot in professional games also, human games also, where black has played this move, which removes a lot of white ko threats, while taking a local profit. And this is what's so complicated about these indirect kos that happen.
I'm just trying to figure out if white wins the ko on the right, what's the value?
Well, it's going to be huge in territory.
Right.
But again, another point of this move that black has played on the left side, it's once black has played that, this point at B that I've marked. Are you seeing the B mark?
I am, yeah.
This point at B that I've marked is going to be a forcing move for black. It means that black's going to be able to cut at C. And so it's renewing the danger to white's group on the right side. So there's a slight difference in the degree of danger that we're going to see in actual play.
Okay.
And also there's the fact that black has some ko threats against white in the upper left part of the board.
Mm-hmm.
That white group that is just barely living. Black has some ko threats against that white.
Yes, that's right.
And so this ko is not going to, it's still not so easy for white to win the ko. So white takes the ko. Black's going to, let's see, where did black play?
Mm-hmm.
Black starts with a ko threat against the upper left. White has some ko threats here. So it's pretty straightforward at this point. Black doesn't have any, if black loses this ko, it's going to be it. So black has to continue with valid ko threats at this point. And so now white sort of, for the time being, white ran out of ko threats. So black, at this point, white doesn't have any good ko threat to play. Like any ko, white might have a ko threat in the center here, like this one, but it would be a terrible loss. White probably doesn't want to play that move. Otherwise, white doesn't have any valid co-threats left.
Wow.
So white connects, and this actually changes the value of the ko. Black has another co-threat here. And now we can see these black stones on the side. This part of the black group, this group here,
Yeah.
gradually getting saved because white doesn't really have time to connect that one stone.
Oh, that's right.
Well, it's still a ko kind of.
Yeah.
No, it's not a ko, is it? Let's take a look at that variation if white tries to connect. I bet it's going to be bad for white because black can just connect here. And white only has 3 liberties left. So if white goes after the corner,
that's right. It's an internal liberty.
Now white's 1 move behind. White's with this connection here, white has filled one of his own liberties.
That's right.
So there's no way for white to win this. White's losing by 1 move. And of course, white's going to be losing to the other group too. Like if white plays here, then on this side, black's winning too. So black's winning on both sides in this scenario.
Wow.
So white just doesn't have time to save that 1 stone. And it's gonna put white in danger here. So now black plays this move as a co-threat.
Oh.
And the importance of this move, not only does it connect the black group, but it's actually threatening white with the cut here.
Yep.
Because this is going to be a forcing move now, so black can actually cut there in the mark.
Man, I thought white was in the driver's seat, but all of a sudden they've switched.
Well, this capture here, which came at a point when they were fighting this big ko.
Yeah.
Not only did it take away co-threats, but it's changing what's happening here with the white group on the right side. And you have to remember this group is still going to be a ko on the right side if white plays here. So it's not going to be simple. But it's changing what's happening with that white group. So it was a very effective move. I think this was, in a way, you could say this was the decisive move of this game. So white, obviously, white's going to grab some points before saving the group. So white's giving up on the idea of playing here to make a ko, getting some extra points on the side by making this exchange, and then saving the group with this move. So it makes sense. If white takes the ko in the corner, then black will be able to. I actually made a variation for this, so black will be able to kill the white group with this sequence. So now it's going to be dead.
Right.
So white saves the group, and the ko will continue. And so, yeah, well, this was threatening the whole black group on the right side. You have to keep your eye on what's going on here. So actually, this move here that white peeped on the second line, not only was it trying to grab some points, it was creating some co-threats against that black group. It's putting pressure on the black group.
I see that now.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, this is sort of strange where white's using a potential co-threat, wasting it. But white goes back to the ko. And again, this move on the 2-1 point is pretty meaningless, actually. But it doesn't really change the key aspect of this course. It doesn't eventually change what's happening here. Okay. So it doesn't turn out to be a bad move. Usually a human player would just continue the ko as it is. But it doesn't have very much of a negative effect. It's just a sort of a weird move that makes it a 2-step ko again. And black is threatening the corner. White has to be careful about this corner. It's a weak group. And so the ko continues. But again, white's going to be running out of ko threats. And so this is the kind of a snapback here.
Nice, very nice.
The vital stone, the cutting stones are captured. So black actually has a lot of, and so white ends up connecting here. So this is still an approach move ko. Now this is the 2-step ko thing is finished now. It's a simpler ko,
right?
But it's still an approach move ko in which black has 3 liberties and white has 4 liberties. So like I think we actually see black filling those liberties. So it will be demonstrated in the game. So black fills the liberty. Black has to play 1 more move at A to get a direct ko. So it's a ko that locally the ko is good for white, but the point is that at this point of the game, black is the side who has a lot of ko threats all over the place.
Oh yeah,
White is running on ko threats, and it's a interesting. Black is an Atari, but this was a valid ko threat because if white takes, black can play here, and the whole white group is going to use.
Oh, very nice, very
That's
nice.
going to be enough profit for black. It's going to be very trouble. I'm not even sure white's going to be able to live.
So that would even. Yeah, the ko doesn't
white
even help.
At this point now, the right side is only half an eye, so only a potential eye for the right.
Right.
For white, and white has a potential eye on the lower side, so it's trouble for white.
That's one word for it.
2 potential eyes is not quite enough, is it?
Is that a proverb?
So, yeah. We could make it into one.
Yes.
So it's a fairly straightforward ko fight. Let's see, where did white play just now? White played a big move. White's run out of ko threats, basically. So white played this big move on the left side, and black has made it finally into a direct ko.
Right.
And black still has ko threats, so black's going to win the ko. And yeah, so finally white captures the upper left corner. So white was sort of waiting for it to become a direct ko for white to play these final ko threats against the upper left corner. And so I tried to count the game. It was really difficult. And it turns out this looks like it's a half-point difference also.
Oh my God.
And so the end game that was played is actually a very good end game, and it makes sense. The order of moves looks good to me. I haven't really made very many variations at this point of the game. For a lot of players, I don't think the end game is an exciting part of the game. But people who like it should be able to figure it out because it's a fairly straightforward end game. Mm-hmm. Well played, and you know, in some of AlphaGo's games,
a little sloppy sometimes.
It seems to be sloppy when there's a margin, a large margin. Sometimes it doesn't play what I would call the optimal moves.
Right.
But when it's a half pointer like this, throughout the end game, like it often makes a half point difference out of a game that is a bigger difference actually.
Right.
But when it's a half point to start with, then it will have to. It's sort of forced by the circumstances to play the best, what I would call the best moves.
Right.
Because it does make a difference. And so if it makes a difference between a win and a loss, then that's something that AlphaGo does care about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing that it bothers about is whether it's going to win or lose. And so the end game moves here are
this is a beautiful end game.
A very unusual position here on the upper side where black played this move, which otherwise, like if black had played covering, for instance, if black plays here, sorry, that was a click-o. White can reduce the territory with this move here.
Oh, that's nice.
Otherwise, if black plays that move at this point, then white's going to curl in here and actually get more profit out of forcing twice from the center here. So that's only 5 points.
Wow.
In the game, well, it's probably 5 points anyway, but it's a better shape move. And so the whole end game here makes a lot of sense. And it turns out that black is going to win by, let's just skip ahead a little bit. Black's going to win by 3/4 of a point, stone, and that's going to be, in Japanese rules, that would have been a half point.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I made a variation for that, where 2 moves before the end of the game. So this is where I made a variation to show what I think is the correct end game, where white plays here, and they just play the final point moves, and it's the end of the game. It's very simple, and it's over. Sorry, yeah, it's like that. So black's winning. They finished the end game points, a few dame points to fill. Black's going to win by, in Japanese rules, it would be half a point. Mm-hmm. And Chinese rules is 3/4 of a stone. But instead, white plays this move, which is not even a big move. Like it's a 1 point move. There were bigger moves in the board. But white plays this move, and black plays here. At which point, white resigned. And so I don't really like to add moves after the game ended, so I did this one with letters. But the point is, if white connects, Black's going to throw at B and just do everything in order. But since this is a KGS file, for the KGS file, I can add a variation. So let's do it. You can see that White's liberties are filled up pretty much. So Black's going to throw in here.
Yeah.
And you can see that Black is in danger too. So Black has to do it in a correct order. So Black just plays here, but it's very straightforward. The whole White group is an Atari now. So White did not have time to exploit this weakness in Black because all of White's stones are an Atari to start with.
I'm sorry, put that back. Where?
So this is the point
how long has that been there?
Only just now. Like Black just cut here in the center. Basically, this move.
So the Atari's okay. The Atari's okay.
Well, of course it's forcing. And so at this point, this cut was a 1 point move.
Oh, I see. White has
The only meaning of this cut here is that White has to put a stone in White's territory now.
Right.
So the whole idea here is that White has to answer here, and then Black will continue with the other endgame points. So it's a 1 point difference in the size of White's territory.
So it would be a 1.5 instead of a half a point game.
No. This is the end game sequence that leads to a half-point win for Black.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's just a very straightforward end game move that is forcing White to put a stone in, which White did not do. But it's the same thing, and it doesn't care that it's losing by something like 30 points instead of just half a point. It's the same thing for AlphaGo. So just to go into that variation again, like I would be in pain, but it doesn't bother AlphaGo. Well, in actual play, maybe White would sacrifice
the tail. Give him a tail, right?
Yeah, it's a tail that's worth about 28, 29, almost 30 points. The whole point is that if White does this if Black does this in the wrong order with something like this, then this threat comes into play, and White can get rid of all the danger by cutting.
I see. Yeah.
And Black doesn't have any point to play an Atari on,
right?
Because Black and now Black's not going to be in time to capture the White group,
right?
So White will be able to save the group now. So the whole point is that Black has to play the vulgar Atari first, and then throw in, playing everything as an Atari, which is not really classy, but it's the only way that works in this case. Yeah.
But see, only humans are worried about being classy.
Yeah, I know AlphaGo doesn't bother. So at this point, White resigned, but it would have been a half-point win for Black.
So, going back to the simple, covering move. Now that I've seen your 150 with the co and all of this nonsense.
You're talking about this thing, right?
I'm still stuck on that thing, right? Yes. So.
Yeah. Well, let's
why again?
Hypothetical moves here. Let's say something like this might happen, and something like this might happen. We're seeing some territory in the center, maybe. I don't really know how the endgame might continue, but we can assume that this area is going to become a. Black would probably play this forcing move first. We can assume this area is probably going to be a Black territory. Black might actually let's be a bit more accurate. Let's have Black play here, and we can see that there's still the potential threat, which is still a bit in the different distance of a forcing move here, setting up a forcing move here, setting up a ko on the right side.
Right.
So there is that, and I did look into this, and it's really close. I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be a half-point difference also.
Okay.
There's an issue of whether White plays the honey here in the sequence, because at some point Black's going to play the honey there as a Sente endgame for Black. Mm-hmm. So somewhere in this sequence that I've just been showing you, White's probably going to be playing that mark point in the upper left corner. So there's it's just going to be a very, very difficult and close endgame.
So I guess you just answered my question, because I'm just sort of thinking that obviously it'd be very difficult for us to read all of that out, the way you were able to take the time to do that, but it's not.
And I don't think it's as if AlphaGo had this diagram that it could show us, but it does have a number value for the board position.
Right.
And maybe it felt that it didn't have good prospects as White.
Gotcha. Wow. That's an amazing. I mean, that's actually just a thrilling game, and I kind of
Like
like. I
this
like.
is move 129. It's a move. It would have been white 130 if white had played that move. But it took them up to move something like 250. Let's see what 250. They're still fighting the ko here. White, and so this is the trade at white 250. So it took them 120 moves to resolve this big fight, in which both sides are taking hits on various parts of the board. Like white has profited in the upper right, upper left corner,
Right.
and black has gained a bit. Black's right side is bigger than it was before, and black is getting all these extra profits in various parts of the board, like the upper side and the capture at D. And white also got the curl at E at some point in the ko. So they're both playing all these big moves, and it's really, really hard to judge who got more out of it. Actually, it's a pretty even trade, but both sides are taking such big losses in various parts of the board. It's really hard to calculate who got more out of it.
I'm just wondering, to top level pros, it just seems like you would have gone for something, quote unquote, simpler. Just because this seems like a really risky path.
Yeah, well, my feeling at this part of the game, when I was watching it, at the part where white played 130, let's just jump to that move again. At this point,
yeah,
I think my gut feeling would be that maybe this is okay for white.
Right.
And so I would have a tendency to want to play this move, and I would be maybe thinking about whether I wanted to play this first or not. And there's issues with that because that creates a weakness here. So there's an order of moves issue that would be a bit of a headache.
Right.
And so I would have an assessment, and the game would be close, but I might be thinking that I had a lead, in which case I would choose this variation.
Mm-hmm.
But if I assessed the game and felt that I was behind, then this might be a move that I would be coming up with.
Okay.
As a solution to that, if I felt I was behind. But feel confident about, I wouldn't really be confident in any case if it was just something like half a point.
Yeah, that's the thing that's striking to me, and I think we've talked about this before, that with the AI's superior and deep reading power, this is and clearly this is not quite at the zero level.
Well, when we look at the games between master and zero, it doesn't seem to be, does it?
No.
Right.
Yeah, but very exciting, wonderfully exciting. So that's thank you, Michael. It's a very exciting game. So as always, folks, thanks for watching. And before we wrap up, just another big thanks to all of our AGA members who continue to make videos like this possible. I don't know what number we're on overall in the series, but it's been going on for a while, and I know y'all are watching, and we're having fun. 22 just of these AlphaGo games, but I think even more in the Redmond series. So thanks to Michael, thanks to all of you for watching. And if you'd like to support this content, and we really hope you do, please consider joining the American Go Association. Lots of other benefits that you get as members besides supporting these videos. Just go to usgo.org and join the AGA. Tell them Chris and Michael sent you. So we'll see you all next week. Thanks again.